Hi everybody, it's Natalie Hemmens, your favorite Southern California realtor, and today I am here to talk to you about the escrow process. My special guest is Kelly. She's the Senior Escrow Officer at Keller Williams Irvine. Kelly, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Of course.
So I wanted to talk to you about escrow because you are the escrow queen, and most people have heard escrow, the term escrow, or they know it's the process where someone's going to be buying a house and it's the time allotted to them to be able to do so. But escrow also differs, from country to country and from state to state. So here in Southern California, what is escrow?
Well, absolutely. In Southern California, the way we handle our escrow is we are the third party unbiased to the transaction. So therefore, we represent the buyer, the seller, and the agents to coordinate a smooth transaction and handle all the funds for the transaction for you.
That is a pretty concise answer. Thank you so much. And then, so I think a lot of people wonder, how do you stay neutral in a transaction like that? What are the things that you do to make sure that you're neutral?
Well, what we're focusing on in escrow is the financial part, is anything that has any involvement with money, which is a debit or a credit to the seller for repairs, or anything we're paying for, an agent paying for a home warranty or something. Any of those items that have to be addressed are the things that we focus on. It's just everybody has a voice, so we just listen to that information, and just only we can do is offer back what we will do. If it's a problem with a termite company, they don't like what they did, the guy was unprofessional, that's all hearsay. And that's what we have to do, is just keep the hearsay out of it, take what the client's focusing on, which is our part. Like for the termite, we might be holding some funds instead of paying them at the close of escrow. So we're reassuring them that that's being taken care of, and trying to keep ourselves out of the argument or the unhappiness, and provide solution and happiness. Because finances is temperamental, it's emotional. I'm as good as the information that is provided. So I can only, if there's no agreement yet, I can just be that party and saying if and when this happens, or if that happens. Or once it's finally happened, I can say that I am the recipient, but I have input ease to either one of the parties that's looking to solve their little problem.
So as a realtor, we see transactions that can last 10 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So, as the escrow officer, can you talk about why some escrow processes take shorter times than others?
Sure. The easiest and the shortest transaction is going to be a cash transaction, of course, because that limits, we don't have the lender involved setting requirements for the transaction. Because as you know, anything that happens in a transaction when there's a lender involved, they have to approve. For a loan transaction, something that delays, it could be an appraisal, but it's usually the loan, and it's not to say it's the lender's fault that the loan is delayed. It's a circumstance, whether something happened with their credit, or something happened with they're going to get a gift funds and the buyer's donor isn't able to get the funds in fast enough, or there's just little things that get delayed, and sometimes you can make up the time difference. The lender can knock out the documents real quick, or sometimes it takes them a couple days to get back on track to where they're trying to close within the 30 days. Sometimes it's no big deal. We just have to have the time to approve it so we don't delay you. That's
right. Everything has to balance out in the end. And so talking about finances, so are escrow companies kind of privatized where they can charge whatever rate they decide to charge, or is it like government mandated, like you can only charge 1% and there's caps for things? How does that work?
It's not mandated, but it's pretty common. I've been in the business over 30 years now, and it's still about the same. It's $2 per thousand with your base of 2 or 250. Now that varies a little bit. Now people can change that. I mean, that's uniform across Orange County. Pretty standard. It's been that way that long. But there's companies that can drop fees and try to, get the business, just like a realtor can drop, a commission to get more business. The rule of thumb is you pay for what you get. And if you find somebody you really like, and you find somebody and that can provide you everything that you need, which is everybody's goal, stick with them and be loyal. I mean, that's the best advice I can give you, and hopefully it's me.
Yeah, yeah, build your team and keep them close. Absolutely. So my favorite question, and I'm sure other realtors and other, buyers and sellers question is, what are some mistakes that we can avoid when going into the escrow process? You're like, realtors, can you just avoid these mistakes and it'll go so much smoother? What are some of those things?
Well, as a listing agent, I love to say, know your seller. And what I mean by that is know what is going on, not only just on the property, like is there an association on the property or is there two associations? Who manages those associations? Know that information up front, because if we, and that's my first one, but if you open the escrow and don't tell us about it, then we have to call you, and then we wait a day, and then we have to call the seller, and we're 4 or 5 days into the transaction without notifying the HOA. And that, because the seller has to pay for them, and then usually it's a link on the internet, and then the HOA company actually takes a couple days to get them to us. So we're all in a time constraint. So that is my biggest piece of advice I can have But beyond just the property factor, know your actual seller. Know if they've had a bankruptcy in the past. Know if they're going through a divorce. Know if they are divorced. The difference being that we're going through a divorce is it's not final. So you're still married, and I am divorced, but then we have to deal with technicalities. If somebody's passed away, know if they have already recorded the affidavit of death, or if it's still in the parent's name and not in the trust, or just kind of know what's going on. And the same can apply to a buyer. Know what they're qualified for. You can get qualified before you buy a house, so you don't have to go through the ups and downs of trying to get the numbers right, and just be aware of what's going on and advise the correct people like me.
Right. Those are some really good ones to talk about. Thank you for sharing those. What happens when this is something that no one wants to go through, but I think we should talk about it. So what happens when a buyer goes into a transaction, they've removed their appraisal contingency, their inspection contingency, and their loan contingency. And then they decide, oh, I don't want the property. Something came up. They've already removed contingencies. And at that time, they could potentially lose their deposit. Can you talk a little bit about that scenario?
Yeah, the general rule of thumb, and I don't have to be in the legality part of it, but the general rule of thumb is when we run into a cancellation, rule of thumb is kind of like just cancel it and resell it, because if you're in my escrow and you have canceled and the seller and buyer don't really agree, so I can't return the deposit until they agree. If that sits there until they agree, or it goes to court, and I can't open another escrow and sell it again because I still got one pending. It's the easiest thing is, just to hopefully have a backup offer, one or two, because I've seen them fall out 2 or 3 times before, so falls out, give the money back to the first guy, go on to the second guy. It just makes it easier. Escrow fees, we don't even charge anything anymore. I mean, if we get way to loan documents and everything has been performed, we might charge a cancellation fee at that point, but it's pretty much rare that we opened it, they decide real quick something's wrong, they don't want to go that way, and we'll go to the backup offer.
And that comes back to escrow being a neutral party. You're not allowed to do anything with the money until the parties themselves agree and let you know what they've decided. So that's important for people to know that escrow is not in charge of deciding what to do with your money. They're holding it for the agents and the seller and the buyer to decide, and then they follow the instructions.
You provide me that signed cancellation, and we'll cancel it and move on to the next one.
Well, Kelly, thank you for sharing your insight with us and giving some of your tips and tricks for a smooth escrow process. I appreciate your time.